Hello and welcome to another episode at Go Beyond Sports with me, Sonali Gupta. And we have with us interesting story of players and people from sports. Today with us is a very well-known legend who's been a part of the 1988 Seoul Olympic Games team. We are very privileged and honored to have with us Miss Lee Capes from Australia. Thank you and welcome, Ms. Lee, to my show at Go Beyond Sports.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. As a part of the 1988 Seoul Olympic Games team, Lee Capes scored the winning goal in the final against South Korea, securing Australia's first gold medal in hockey Olympic history and beginning a golden era that resulted in 3 Olympic golds and 2 World Cup triumphs over 12 years. Capes hails from an impressive hockey pedigree, perhaps unlikely to be matched by many others. Hockey runs deep in the family, as Capes' daughter, Kathleen Nobes, a Hockeyroos, currently part of Australia's women hockey team at the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games. Kathleen's dad, Michael Nobes, also played in the 1984 Los Angeles Olympic Games and coached the Indian men's hockey team at the 2012 London Olympic Games. Her mother, June Harding, was inducted into the Hockey Australia Hall of Fame in 2018 after her contribution to hockey as a member of the Hockeyroos from 1957 to 1963. Similarly, Lee and her sister Michelle were recently inducted into WA's Hall of Champions as members of the unbeatable WA team from 1985 to 1991. Miss Lee, this is extremely impressive and really truly remarkable, perhaps very difficult for most families to actually accomplish sport at such a high level of play. Sure. So, Ms. Lee, I would like to start with this first question. There is so much of history of sports in your family. What really makes you all choose sports and also choose it at such an international or perhaps at the highest levels possible?
It's very Australian, part of our culture, that as a young child, probably from the age of 5, that we get involved in some form of sport. That's very common, particularly learning how to swim and learning how to run. As you know, our country is surrounded by ocean, and learning how to swim from the age of probably 4 or 5 is really important. And most families also believe in doing sport probably from the age of 6 or 7, which I know is very different to India, because like with hockey, I started playing hockey as a 9-year-old, whereas others now start playing as 4 and 5-year-olds. So yeah, so I think that's part of it. My parents were heavily involved in sport. My dad was a footballer, and he believed strongly in doing athletics. His belief was children should learn how to run properly, learn how to throw properly, and learn how to jump. So that is athletics, and we have a thing here called Little Athletics, and you do that from the age of 7 to 12, and it's doing every athletics event. So it's lots of fun, lots of participation, and that's what we did. And it's interesting, like I followed my mother's footsteps into hockey. My sister followed her footsteps. I have another sister who also did very well at hockey. My brother went into cricket because my dad was a cricketer as well. And then when I had my children, so my husband was international hockey player as well, our eldest daughter could not catch a ball, she couldn't throw a ball, she couldn't hit a ball, and she didn't want to. So it was quite interesting because we had this little one, and we all try and get our children involved in sports, but she didn't want to do anything with a bat and a ball. So we tried Little Athletics. No, she didn't like that, and she ended up being an international figure skater. So so it's really interesting. Our philosophy has always been find something that the child is passionate about, what they love. And it could be art, it could be music, it could be a sport. And as with us, one loved hockey and surf lifesaving. She did that. And my other daughter did ice skating, figure skating. So, yeah, it's just, to me as a parent, I think really important that with children, you find that they learn to run, they learn to throw, learn to jump at an early age. They get that hand-eye coordination at an early age, and then they find something that they're passionate about. And as a parent, it's your job to just encourage them to keep doing something that they love. It's really important that they love it.
Right. And while you spoke about so many aspects of including kids into sports and inducting them into sports at such an early age, do you then have a few set of life skills that you really talk about for what you have learned from sports, or what you teach your children, not only as a parent, but as a coach, that really you imbibe through sports?
Definitely. Probably the main one is we were always firm believers in, you're playing a sport or you're doing a musical instrument or whatever it may be because you enjoy it, because you love it. And so I saw a lot of parents got hung up on children getting selected in teams. And I used to say to them, getting selected in a team is icing on the cake. That's not the cake. The reason they are doing it, or should be doing it, is because they love it. And if they get selected in a team, well, that's a little bit of icing on the cake. And if they don't, it doesn't matter, because they're doing what they love. And if they're doing what they love, they're going to want to go out and train. I never, ever said to my children, ever, you need to go and train, because, and my figure skater daughter, they skated 5 mornings a week at 6 a.m. in a freezing cold ice rink. And if she didn't wake me up for me to take her training, I wasn't taking her. So never, ever had to force them to train, because they were doing it because they loved it. And if the day ever came that they said, we don't want to, that's it. That's their choice. So that would be the main thing, is not basing children's success in sport on whether or not they get selected in a team, because selection in a team comes down to subjective decision-making by 3 people. And those 3 people may not be very clever. You know, it shouldn't actually dictate what your child, you know, whether they're successful or not. So that would be the main thing, is that you're doing it because you love it. If you get these selections, great. If you don't, doesn't matter. And the other thing is with a team sport, so our family always instilled that in us. If we are going to commit to a team sport, we don't decide in the middle of it that we're going to go away on holidays and miss. We're not going to let the team down. So we were really big on, if you choose to do a team sport, you must be a good team player and a good team member, and you're supportive and you do the right thing by the team. So that was probably the other thing that would be my main message.
Right. You're also very vocal about the part where communication plays a huge role in learning. So how do you involve communication in your coaching?
As a coach, and I've done a lot of coaching, particularly of juniors, and this is something I noticed a difference between coaching in Australia and coaching in India, watching coaching in India. I feel that a lot of coaching in India is the coach or the teacher telling and the student listening and doing. Whereas in Australia, and I think this is a culture difference as well, right. It's a very two-way communication. So to me, what I said earlier is one way, tell, do, whereas in Australia it's two-way. We're always encouraging the children to ask and to comment, and we encourage them by saying, in this situation, what do you think we should do? So we're trying to encourage the children to think for themselves. And right. So when they get out on the playing field and they have to make a decision, they've had years and years of actually thinking for themselves and
Right.
analysing situations and being able to, think for themselves without having a coach or teacher to tell them the answer.
Right. So how has then the practice that you did and training for yourself at the beginning of your career versus how the situations are today, how has it sort of changed over the years? And do you think it's sort of easier now with the kind of technology that is available for coaches to train the students?
I think it's easier. There's a lot more options, like coaches can go and look at video replays and slow things down and analyze. They can actually video the athlete or the child doing the technique and analyze, which is really wonderful to reduce reduce injuries. So in the case of fast bowling in cricket, back in the old days, you went and did it, and if you got a back injury because of poor technique, that's what happened. But nowadays you can analyze the athlete and avoid injuries to the young ones by making sure that their technique is correct. So that is a very, very good positive to protect the young growing body from getting injury. Analysing games is a lot easier. But when I say that, analysing games, it's easier, but it also makes it harder because people are now analysing you. So, there's plus and minuses for both, yeah.
Right. So as a player and coach, what do you think would make hockey more accessible or perhaps accepted to more countries and audiences given the current situations?
It has to have an entertainment value. And so I really like that it's changed to 4:15 minutes instead of the 2:35s. Right. When it was 2:35s, it was longer. You would try and wear the opposition down by over a period of time. But now, because it's on television, we want someone to turn it on and look at it and go, wow, that's exciting, not have to wait 65 minutes for a goal to be scored. So I think the entertainment value is really important, and the 4:15 minutes makes it so much faster. So everything about the game is more exciting. And the players are allowed to be constantly rotated on and off, whereas in the old days, that wasn't allowed. So now the players can play really hard for 5 minutes, come off and have a couple of minutes rest and go back on. So all the players on the field are participating at optimum performance. So that's made it really exciting. I think the hockey fives, which India did very well at a couple of years ago at the Youth Olympics in both the girls and the boys, that is really exciting as well, because it's an entertainment. It's a smaller field. It can be seen easier on television. Yes. The audience can sit closer to the sidelines, and it's lots and lots of goals. So they're sort of things that are going to make hockey more exciting. And then a child watching it's going to go, oh, wow, that looks like fun. Mum, can I try it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think then is hockey a more gear intensive sport, or are all of those gears necessary to enjoy it?
If you pick up a stick and a ball and you love it, that's what counts. And whether you are playing first grade or 10th or 100th grade, it doesn't matter. The beauty about hockey, as shown in Australia particularly, is we start with they call it minky, and it's mini hockey. So it's a smaller stick, a bigger ball, a softer ball, bigger goals. Everyone plays all over the field and they have lots of fun. And that's from about the age of about 5 or 6. And then we have a veterans competition. So we still have people in the over 80 years of age still playing it. So it's a sport that the whole family can play, from the little kids to the medium to the adults to the elderly. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me something. What, according to you, is the most underrated yet extremely vital field position in hockey?
feet, did you say?
Field position.
Oh, field position.
I'm sorry, yes.
It's interesting because the time has changed and it's now so much faster. In the old days, basically, if you were slow, you got put in defence. If you were big, you got put in goals. If you were little, you got put up the front. But now everyone is an athlete all over the field. So if you have a look at the goalkeepers, they're generally tall, and I think that's one thing that is important. And if you have and that's something you can't get better at. You can't say, I want to be a goalie, I want to, get taller. You are what you are. So that's sort of a position that's dictated by height, but there's still many brilliant goalkeepers in the world who aren't tall. Bharat Chetri, who was your Indian captain back in 2012, isn't as tall as Srijes and was equally brilliant. So, all over the field now, it used to be according to your body type or your skill level where you got put, but now everybody all over the field has to be agile and fast, and so speed is a lot more important now, more than being able to run all day at a level pace. Speed off the mark over 5 meters, because of the speed of the game, is more important. So every position is equal.
How would you compare the infrastructure in Indian hockey setup to that in Australia, bases on what we have currently, and bases on the way that Indians are now doing in hockey?
I think it comes back a little bit, it comes totally back to the culture, in that, as I said earlier, Australians get their children playing sport from the age of 3 and 4. They're catching a ball or throwing a ball. I saw in India, you see young boys out playing cricket in the street, but you don't see girls out playing cricket in the street. So quite often the girls are getting up to maybe 12 years of age before they're starting to learn those motor skills. And the Australians have already been doing that for 8 years. So they've got a 7 or 8 year head start on particularly your girls or your women's side of sport, which is something, if you could bring into primary schools, would be wonderful for the future of Indian sport.
Right.
A lot of primary schools here in Australia have physical education as a subject.
Right.
And in high schools, every student does maximum of a couple of hours a week of physical education, and they get a taste of every sport. So they do swimming, they do athletics, they do hockey, they do football, they do dancing, gymnastics. They get a taste of every sport. So that's something that I think stands Australian children in really good stead for becoming world-class athletes. I'm not sure about the school situation in India. I don't know if that does happen.
Yes, we do have introduction of physical education starting at grassroots and starting at primary schools now. However, yes, like you very rightly mentioned, that there is some kind of a little cultural shift that really still requires to come around in our in our country. However, so then even though we talk about the cultural differences, are there some gender biases in sports, in the field of sports in general, and in itself, that affects any player, or probably even worldwide?
Yeah, when I look at, there's always been gender bias in sport. Australia is taking great steps to minimise that, but obviously it's still there. You look at what women soccer players or football players get paid compare, but women here are now playing soccer and rugby and having access to play those sports. The problem with that is it's going to take a long time for their level of skill to get up, because they weren't able to be kicking a footy and hitting a cricket ball as little ones, because girls, there was no provision for that. So that will take quite some time, probably a good generation, to recover from. the other thing I noticed with India is, well, in Australia, we all speak one language. It's very multicultural, but we all speak English. And in India, like in the Indian men's team, for example, you've got something like 9 different areas represented in your team, and you have people come from, what's your little
right from the northeast to the south to
yeah,
the
and
north
they
to the
speak different
west.
languages.
Yes.
Yeah, they speak different languages. So there was a young girl came into your team a couple of years ago, and she didn't speak Hindi and she didn't speak English, and there was actually no one there who actually spoke her language. So yeah, that's like putting different countries together.
Yes.
Not being able to communicate. It's like putting German with French with, Spanish. So I think that's something that is very difficult for India when they're selecting teams to compensate for.
Right. And yes, it is, while we are so proud about the cultures altogether, but yes, it does bring in with it its share of slight little difficulties, like you very rightly mentioned. I'd like to ask you this, and more in the sense of how a younger parent would think when they're introducing the kids, that hockey is a contact sport which presents itself with a lot of injuries. Do you think that sort of keeps a lot of parents away from introducing the kids to hockey as a sport, or probably any other sport per se?
Well, hockey actually is meant to be a non-contact sport. So the sticks make contact, but not the body. So that's in the rules. So in terms of safety for children playing hockey, it's really important that the people who are running the sport are very mindful of minimizing any form of injury or eliminating any form of injury. And that comes in by teaching the children good skills, good basic skills. And then it comes into play by teaching them good sportsmanship. And it comes into play by having control of the environment. So the person in charge is actually knows the rules, knows how to implement the rules, and teaches the children a form of discipline through the use of their skill. So they're not swinging their sticks around and doing things that are dangerous. So that's really important. That's something that here is very, very, it's actually implemented at a government level and overseen at a government level, that if you're going to coach a team of children and young ones, you actually have to get basically a license and show that you have that ability, and that's really important. Gone are the days where discipline involved physical, that's gone. That's cannot be tolerated at any level. So there are all things that come into play in keeping it a safe environment, even as much as looking at the field and checking that there's not broken things on the field, and that the sticks are in good condition, and all things like that. But you have shin guards, you have mouth guards, and there are things that children should be, once they get to a certain level, should be wearing. But the teaching of the skill is really important. There's a thing called a tomahawk now, that because of the makeup of the stick, because the stick is a composite of wood and other things now, you can actually come in at an angle and apply a great deal of force to it. But it's actually a dangerous skill if the child doesn't learn how to use it properly. And so in Australia, we don't allow children to learn it. We say, no, you're not allowed to use it until you're a certain age, 14, for example. And then they have the good decision making by then, and the sense of how to control it. So there are all things that can come into play to make it a safe sport. It should be a safe sport.
Right. Given the results of the Indian women hockey team in Tokyo Olympics, what, according to you, went wrong for the girls there, and what were the areas that you saw could have been improved?
The girls did great. The girls, you have a look at the physical difference. I think that's a big thing. I know They're fit, they're very, very fit. So everything that could be controlled by the science people with the team, and everything in a tactical point of view from the coach, was actually done to a very high level. I don't think there's much more they could have done.
Perhaps introduction of a lot more leagues and making it interesting would also elevate a lot of sports and the level of sports for most countries, and particularly so in India, because that gives a lot of chance for grassroots players to come forward and participate as well.
For sure, for sure. And you're getting there. You're getting more turfs.
Yes.
Particularly through the involvement with Odisha. David John, your high performance director, when he arrived, you had one coach that had international accreditation, and now there are 600 in a matter of 3 years. Yes. So that is all education that will filter, but it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Right. How does it feel after your daughter, Kathleen Nobbs, qualifying for the Tokyo Olympics as well? Does it feel like it has been a full circle? How do you feel as a mother and as a coach?
Well, I've lived in India, as you know, the last 3 years. So I've sort of been watching from afar. And when we talk, and we talk through Skype, it was like we're talking about everything else. We're talking about the dogs and, you know, every normal life stuff. We didn't really talk much about hockey, but she's actually been out with quite a serious injury. So she's been out for 9 months with this injury, and she's only been back 3 months. So it's been quite a nerve-wracking time. I guess she was lucky that the pandemic stopped any hockey happening, because she wouldn't have been able to play anyway due to her injury. And because of it, she was allowed to come back very slowly. So our last 12 months has been managing this injury that she's had. And now she's back and she's strong and she's fit. And, you know, the important thing is that she enjoys the occasion and goes out there. And as we say to, you know, as their coach said to all of them, you've done your best to prepare. Let's just go and see what happens. So, yeah, that's the Australian way of thinking. We've controlled what we could control, such as our fitness and all these other things. Let's go and do the best we can, and what it is what it is.
I'm going to ask you a question. While you have been in and around India, and you've been so deeply involved in the sport out here, what are the few things that you have taken from the Indian way of sports and from the cultures here for the sport?
Yeah, I just love the passion of the players. Like I went to a couple of junior competitions particularly, and came down, and I got introduced to the players as having won an Olympic gold medal, and just their sheer joy for being a hockey player and being around hockey, and their sheer love of going out and playing. I really love that. I love their desire to achieve. I really love that as well. And I think, you know, that's another cultural thing. And I just love seeing the kids out there having fun. That to me was the best part.
It has been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure knowing so much from you about sports, about hockey, and how to really imbibe the culture of sports within ourselves. So before we part ways with this interview today, what would be the one tip or a trick that you would give to the hockey players out there watching and hearing you today?
I would say to parents, try and introduce ball skills to children from a young age. And it doesn't have to be with a hockey stick. It could be juggling balls, you know, just get that eye tracking movement, you know, teaching children how to run and jump and throw and track balls and catch balls, just any form of coordination, cartwheels, whatever, just some, you know, motor skills in a way that they have fun, you know, let them play. really important that right up to the age of 12, don't even keep score when you play games. Play games for the sheer love and fun and developing skills and developing, motor skills, so that as they go through life, they want to keep playing and keep healthy and keep strong, because sport offers so much more than just, making a team and winning. It offers comradeship, sportsmanship, health, so many health benefits, learning how to communicate, learning time management, learning self-discipline, so many other aspects that are positive for a child to be doing sport and want to continue doing sport. You don't want them having bad experiences because they won't keep doing it. You want them to have fun so that they do keep doing it. And then they, in turn, do the same to their children. And it becomes a wonderful, positive family and community environment.
And what would be one small little trick that you can share that players can use?
Make sure you fuel your body properly. Fuel your body. So if anyone has access to, when David did his, I know he's done some Zoom meetings, with this sort of thing, and he talks a lot about nutrition and how to fuel your body, and that's really important.
Thank you so much. Yes, the
Pleasure.
importance of nutrition and health, and perhaps more so mental health in this day and age, has become such an important topic for all of us, not only as athletes, but just as people per se. And that's where sports players come forward, and they can show all of us what it means to be in tune with your own body, and what it really means to sort of know what we can do beyond what we think we can do with our bodies.
Yes. Yeah. And it could be yoga, it could be Tai Chi, it could be anything, just as long as there's passion and you love it. That is what counts. That is what's important.
Thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Okay,
it's been a pleasure, and there's been so much learning from you. And thank you to everyone out there who's been watching, who's been continuously supporting. Thank you. Do watch and do support. See you again soon.
Okay. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.